Good morning, my man.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Podcast in the woods.
In the woods. Hey, it's November 6th. It's 2020. Welcome aboard Crushing Iron Podcast 423.
423, and yes, we are on the road.
We are.
We're on our mobile gear.
We're on the mobile gear, our mobile devices, as many of us are all the time. But yes, I think this is our first one with this new mobile gear.
Yeah.
Yeah, outside of the
blue plate.
We did this, at the blue plate. Yeah, we are currently at Run Camp, which is in the remote yet beautiful Nunley, Tennessee. We've been here since Wednesday night. We'll be here till Sunday. We've got about 22, 23 athletes here. We've been doing nothing but running, hanging out, relaxing, and the beautiful scenery, and have had absolutely spectacular weather for November in the South. It is 50s and 60s, and I think going to get up to 70s today. So we've been here since Wednesday. We are on the road. We come to you twice a week, traditionally Mondays and Thursdays, but always twice a week. So appreciate your patience. And that's all I got for today.
Okay.
That's it. We'll wrap it up. No.
It's a beautiful day.
It is a beautiful day.
It's a beautiful scenery. I wish you guys could see it.
It is. We'll post some pictures. But if it's your first time tuning in, we always appreciate it. We know you have a lot of options in the podcast universe and triathlon-specific podcasts as well. So we appreciate you giving us your time. We cover a lot. We cover all things triathlon and all things life. We'll do swim, bike, run specific related podcasts. We'll do nutrition on occasion. We'll cover race recaps. We'll do race previews. Before I forget, a big good luck and have a happy, healthy race to all of our athletes doing Ironman Florida tomorrow and also 70.3. Have fun, relax, do your best, and just enjoy the journey. That's what we do. Mike and I have both been coaches and athletes for 10 plus years. We've been best friends for 7. We started this podcast 4 years ago and been coming to you twice a week ever since. So yeah, that's what we'll do today. We have no sponsors. We have no ads. That's what we do. Happy and healthy is our agenda.
I feel like that best friends thing is on a sliding scale too. Are you not telling me something today?
Sliding scale? Why not? Are we not best friends?
Has it been 7 or 8?
I'm not
maybe
good
you're
at
right.
I feel like it's
when it really kind of starts
7.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
Yeah,
man.
I can tell.
It's great to be out here trail running. It's great to be sort of away from everything right now. Little break.
Could we have? I'll be totally honest. Like, and you know me, I'm not a political person by any stretch of the imagination. So when I booked this camp over a year ago, I had zero idea that it was going to be. I mean, of course, no one could have predicted like back last November that I was like, we'll do, because we usually do November, February run camps. So as soon as we got in last year, the place that we use, the 5-star retreat, always books up real quick. Because I was like, I better go ahead and book these dates, figure it out. And even though it was Ironman Florida week, and I was like, we got to do it here. Nothing else works. Going to get too close to Thanksgiving, so I booked it. And then, of course, we had 2020, you got a pandemic, you have all other kinds of craziness. And then about 2 months out, I started to realize, we're basically going to start run camp. We're basically going to start run camp the day after the election, electioning, the beginning of the election, I guess, is how things are going. But, yes, had zero idea that was going to be the date. This is going to be the weekend. And I did send out, as you know, a little email for our campers when they were coming in that this would be a news-free site. There would be no CNN, there'd be no MSNBC, there'd be no Fox News, there would be no news of any kind on any of the TVs anywhere in the lodge. This was to be kind of a what it usually is a good weekend for athletes to get away and detach from reality, because reality is hard, and just relax. And I mean, honestly, as kind of stressful as it seemed to be away, it actually probably couldn't have been a better weekend for a lot of people to just not be like parked in front of their TV or just constantly checking their mobile devices for what's going on, with the election and everything else. So I actually think it ended up being pretty much spectacular timing.
Yeah, it can eat you alive. And you're right. I mean, it's been nice to not have TVs. And frankly, we don't have very good Wi-Fi here either. So it's all kind of limited. And there's nothing better than kind of taking a break from that stuff.
I think that's actually from the topic for today is taking a break.
Taking a break.
In general, this is the time of year that we're in now as we enter, and I kind of touched on this with our athletes in our email I sent out this previous Monday was, with everything we have going on in the world and with people's lives, and you have the holidays, you have Thanksgiving, you got New Year's, you got Christmas, you got Hanukkah, you got all these other holidays. November, December is a really, really great time to be like super flexible. And if you need some kind of I'm not saying that you need to take a gigantic break. Because I think over the course of a year, like I was talking with an athlete last night right before dinner with Chris Nack, she was talking about her progress, and we're kind of touching base on where to go for this next year and how work and life has been. And we were kind of referring back to this break. So once she was training for Ironman Wisconsin, which I think a lot of athletes had this period of time, and this kind of struggle this year was you go back and you start January 2020, you're thinking, gosh, like I'm ready for this year. I'm going to crush it. I'm going to be super consistent. I've got all these things I'm going to do. And even through, when the pandemic started and everything started shutting down and race started getting canceled, you still kind of held out hope that at some point your race was going to happen. Even if it's, you always call me, optimistic and positive. It's like, because I rarely find like a negative or a drawback in being overly optimistic, because what are you really going to lose out on? Like if you're optimistic and positive, yes, your race might get canceled, but the things
call you wrong.
You can call me wrong, which is what everybody loves to do.
I've been waiting for it.
I've been waiting to, like you're wrong. Well, people are racing tomorrow in Ironman in Florida, so it wasn't wrong. But you kind of hold out. I mean, even me, like when I signed up for Texas 70.3 back in August, and really telling anybody, because I was thinking, all right, it's in November. I'm hopeful it's going to happen, and I think that hope is what drives you it drove me to kind of get in some of the best shape I've been in years. And so even if it doesn't happen, is there going to be like some big negative takeaway? No, like I still have gained a huge positive experience. So I think that's what sometimes can get lost in when people say like, oh, you're just too optimistic or you're naive. And I'm like, well, what does being like overly negative and critical going to get you besides like being in a constant mood and complaining? And so she talked about, the year that went on was very, very consistent. And you add on all the additional stressors that most of us have had this year with work and relationships and everything else that has been kind of compounded and multiplied by, life circumstances that we've all had. And she took this break from, I want to say late September to early October. Went to Oregon, kind of the last month when Ironman Wisconsin was supposed to happen, which was like the big event. And so as we were talking last night, and, she said, well, I can't really, I don't really want to go back and have that again. I said, well, I think breaks are needed, right? I think everyone needs a mental and emotional break, and a physical break. I think most athletes honestly need more of a mental and emotional break than they do a physical break. As long as their training is being programmed correctly, you really shouldn't need like a huge physical break, unless you're training for an Ironman where you put in a lot of volume and a lot of distance. Your body does need time to recover in order if you would have a bigger and better year. 4 to 6 weeks is a good off period of unloading. But mentally, in order to be on, which I was referring to her last night, I was like, the last 2 to 3 or 4 weeks, you've probably been as on as you've ever been since we started working together. And I credit that to the break you thought you needed, which was she went to Oregon, I think, to visit family. And she was like, for these 2 or 3 weeks, I'm just going to run whenever I feel like it. I can't swim, I can't bike, so I'm just going to kind of do whatever I feel like for 2 or 3 weeks. And we referred back to them, and as I felt like it was very, very important to just kind of revitalize and re-energize yourself, which is, like what a lot of athletes say that camp does for them. Like it's not a physical break by any stretch. Like right. it's a tough 3, 4, 5 days of a lot of hard running, which is what we do here on the trails. We'll probably talk about that in a little bit, but it's the mental and emotional break you get from having to be a constant parent, having to be a constant spouse, having to be a constant employee or a constant boss, or constantly being pulled on all these, different directions. You can get pulled on social media to kind of like recharge. And then you come back and feel you feel revitalized. You might be a little more extra. You might be extra sore from the camp experience of the running, but outside of that, you really do feel like, wait a minute. So I got okay sleep, and I ran like 2 to 3 times every day on really hard terrain. But I came back and I feel energized. Like what? That's not how it's. I should feel shelled. And I think these breaks, especially that people will take over, November, December, are just going to be very, very important to not be lazy. You don't want to be lazy in November, December. I'm just going to start back January 1st, which is what a lot of people do. They're like, it's November, you got Thanksgiving holidays. I'm just going to take a break, and then I'm going to get my New Year's resolutions going. Then I'm really going to kick off on 2021. And what happens is you kind of find yourself on the, you're not treading water no longer. You're kind of sinking in terms of like where your fitness is. And so I think breaks are great. And I think it's how you take the break and what if you kind of do a systems check and think, and you could probably, speak to this as well in length, is like the past, few months for you is like, I think we all kind of need to do, again, like that systems check is like, what do I need the most? Do I need a physical break? Like, do I really need a physical break from training, or is what I really need a mental and emotional break from the adherence that is being in constant training throughout the year, or having like an expectation that you have a workout plan. Like, just to have that freedom to just do things, I think can re-energize you in all three, or it can really focus on, the mental and emotional aspect, which is just as, if not more important, in my opinion, than the physical break.
Mm-hmm. Talking about breaks, and obviously you just hit on it, but I think in terms of, I think we all have that tendency to say, oh, I need a break, and that means just like kick back on the couch like I am right now, but it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's interesting whenever we come to this run camp, because we do typically do things that I am personally not used to. It's a little bit more than I'm used to doing, and a lot of that, though, becomes hiking and strength work and moving up hills and things like that. And there's something about that I think makes me feel better. And so to your point about when we take these breaks and kind of aren't doing the normal things that we do, which is, running on flats for a long period of time. And it's sort of like sometimes those things really can wear you down, I feel like. And I think we kind of ignore certain strength muscles in our body and exercising range of motions and all these sorts of things. And I think that, like I was telling somebody today, it's like I felt really tired. This is the second day in a row I've run on hills, and I haven't obviously been running that much. So I felt tired, but at the same time, I felt like my muscles are saying, welcome back. I'm kind of excited about this, because I wasn't sore. It wasn't really hurting me, but I was just weak, and I was kind of like, all right, just take it easy. You're feeling good. Don't sabotage it now and try and do something crazy and then create a bad loop again, And there's just really something about that, and the idea of unplugging, like, legitimately. And that's why we were saying no TV's on, and, like, it really is a kind of a nuisance to try and get a signal out here on your phone. And I just don't think you can underestimate that whole unplugging thing. And I think that's a big part of what this run camp sort of delivers.
Well, it does, but I mean, I think that's also the beauty of, and this time of year is so great for it, because the temperatures are so favorable, for most people in most places. It's
right.
Like, you go through the summer and like, yeah, it's great to run outside, but like, dear God, is it hot, and like right now, that's why trail running is so great, to mix into all of your, even if you're not like, oh, I'm not a trail runner. Okay. Well, if you run, then you can also go run on a trail. Like it's not like some specialty. Yes, do you have to get your body, used to the wear and tear that you're going to have on specific types of trail and the terrain you're going to have? Absolutely. But what trail running does and can offer to any athlete, any runner, any triathlete is quite a few things. One, the unplugging part is a huge piece, because when you get into the areas that we're in here, or a lot of trails, like the GPS signal you're going to get is going to be somewhat accurate, but not all the way. So you're going to have to basically 100% disregard pace. Because the signal and the distance is probably, like, we've all run the same routes, and all of our Garmin's are going off at like totally different times, along the thing. You're getting totally different elevations. So it's all, none of it's accurate. It's all based on effort and time. And so understanding that out of the gate and kind of removing that, if you can, and I think that's a big thing with athletes, is most athletes who run on the road strictly and run flat all the time, like I think the best analogy or example I could give is athletes who strictly ride on the trainer all the time and never ride outside. You can get away with mistakes in posture. You don't have to worry about handling. You don't have to worry about being engaged mentally. Here, trail running, especially where we are on a lot of trails, you have to be mentally engaged the whole time. You're going up, you're going down, you're going left, you're going right, you have a switchback, you got rocks, you got limbs, you got roots. Like, you have to be on, you have to plan your next step. And then on a treadmill or on a trainer, or even like running on the road if it's flat, you can just kind of go on autopilot, and be like mentally and emotionally lazy, because nothing's going to happen. Like, you may take a bad stride, or you may hit a curb, but other than that, like, you're going to be pretty much okay. You don't have to really think a lot.
Right.
You can totally disregard your east and west movement or any kind of.
And your mind wanders, man.
Totally.
It sort of like goes. And out here, I was telling somebody yesterday, it's like the minute you start going, wait, did I forget to do something at home? You hit a rock and you trip. It's almost automatic.
It so is like that. I have to remind me, like when I was training for Leadville before I got canceled, like when I was doing like some 4.5 hour runs, that's when I found myself making mistakes. It was like after 2 hours, it wasn't my body that was tired. It was my mind. I was like, wait, I don't want to concentrate anymore. Like, I don't want to consistently and think about the next step I'm going to take. Is I would do the exact, I instead of looking down or up front where I'm going to go, I would kind of pick my head up and like, oh, look around, bam. Like, oh, I almost bit the dust and like did a face plant. Like, you have to be engaged and in the moment. And I think that's the piece of it that, again, the best analogy I give is like when you're riding the trainer, you don't have to pay attention to other cars or the road or the terrain or the wind or how you're handling your posture. Like, you can just get away with it. You can get away with wandering. And then you even see athletes in training peaks. They do this in the runs. They do this on rides. They do this in swimming. When you swim just straight for a long period of time without doing intervals and focus, like you just kind of repeat the same bad habit and you kind of go off on la la land, and you don't even, like I use the book analogy, like if you're not paying attention present in a book, you can read 4 or 5 pages and you kind of look up and you're like, I don't even know what I just read. And you gotta flip back a few pages, you're like, I gotta get re-engaged. And trail running can do that. If as long as you can detach yourself from the obsession with the pace difference, because the pace is going to be drastically different from what you see on the road. It's going to be totally different. So as long as you can detach yourself from what you see with that, then you're going to be okay, because it's harder to run on the terrain. You don't give as much pushback from the dirt or the gravel or the grass, whatever it is you're running on. So that makes it a little more harder. And then the other part is just, once you let go of pace and expectation of what the time is, you can be in the moment and enjoy what I think a lot of athletes neglect, which is like the lateral movement that it takes and the proprioception to take steps and work your lower leg muscles, which a lot of athletes really, really underutilize because they just run the same flat route all the time, 24/7, without having to think about it. And then they take a course that's more technical, same thing as a riding, and then they kind of find themselves using more mental and emotional energy they're not used to. So they start to fatigue more just from an RPE standpoint, from mentally and emotionally. And hey, we're having
joined by the camp.
Yeah, we're live currently, and our athletes figured they would just come up here.
Wow, what a reception here!
This is probably driving Mike absolutely crazy right now because he. Yeah, they came in to complain about the running they've been doing. Because I was legit about to go downstairs and say they need to shut up because they're being too loud. Hey, make sure you shut the door on the way out.
And no more cornhole.
Yeah, no more cornhole until we're done. We got 30 more minutes.
We should have grabbed some interviews there.
Yeah, they thought they were funny. I was on a roll. I thought they thought we were funny. We'll probably keep spirituality. We'll probably keep most of them. But no, I think that's one of the pieces that I think is super underrated. If you can let go and the working of the lower leg muscles and just being aware, detaching yourself from the pace, because you do, most athletes are obsessed with the time and the pace and expectation, but running on trails is about strength, it's about effort, and it's about time. And you have to just totally let go of everything else, and you work different muscles than you would before. So I think adding it in as every other week, is a great thing, or just as a choice. Just go out and enjoy, especially this time of year. Like something that I learned from a coach, this is probably 7 or 8 years back, was in the quote unquote off season, November, December, January, February, sometimes instead of giving his athletes longer runs, he would say, take a backpack, put a bunch of books in it, go on a hike. Just don't take your watch. Just, generally just go out for what you think might be 45 hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, a little ruck.
Just go for a ruck. And I would be stunned when I got back at how much like my hamstrings and my glutes had been engaged, and I was somewhat sore like the next day.
Yeah.
But it was so nice to still get in work, but not something to where I'm having, like the work I'm doing doesn't have to be pieced together to some expectation that's going to lead to a future race down the road, because no matter what you're doing in 2021, this time of year is about really just kind of recharging your battery, revitalizing your spirit in a way, mentally and emotionally, and just kind of refocusing on the things you might need to work on or have neglected for the last 2, 3, 4 months, looking at making for a bigger, better year in 21 since racing is back and it's going to happen. It's time to refocus, but you don't want to focus, which most athletes do. You don't want to focus too quickly. You don't want to start like, I'm going to steer me one, I'm going to get on it, because then by March you're like, I'm done. Like I don't. There's only so long you can focus on things for, right? And so you have to be just really, really aware of where your mind, where you are mentally and emotionally, is, and not just physically.
Yeah. what an interruption there. Can I just say though that it is great that you can see it, and it happens at every camp. There's a lot of people that come and that don't know each other, and then what we just saw, I felt was like this sort of like gelling together of everybody that came together, and that they become friends. It's just a really cool thing that happens. But to your point, man, and I think I addressed this a little bit. The idea of me coming back from plantar fasciitis on some rocky, crazy trails a few weeks ago seems so counterintuitive, but to that exact point, the fact that the trails work different parts of your body and for your ankles and the whole 9 yards, I think that's been the key, actually. In a weird way, the discovery for me is that instead of running on pavement straight ahead and aggravating plantar fasciitis over and over and over and over again, now I'm kind of spinning it out, and my ankles are twisting the other way, and there's other kind of stuff going on, and different types of soreness, but it's all sort of overall strengthening the whole situation. And I think that's exactly what I needed. And I have been taking it slow, so I'll do some of these hiking up hills, and I've been walking up a lot of hills. And to your point, man, it just feels good. To be honest, how you can get that heart rate up, and it's just not it's a grind, but it's sort of something that you can handle. And it's not, if you feel like you could go on and on and on and on, but it's doing good work. And that's like, to me, I don't think you can substitute for that kind of stuff.
Well, and whether I think you realize it or not, and a lot of athletes don't do this because they are so obsessed with getting back to the way they used to be. Is that one of the best ways for an athlete to come back from an injury or a setback or just a layoff in one specific discipline or sport is to do something that's similar but not the same. And so, like, for a guy like you who's so used to running on the road all the time, when you're trying to come back from an injury and you want to associate previous paces and previous times to what you used to be, you're always going to see that. But from, going back, you didn't run a lot of trails. So now you can kind of still run, yet detach from any kind of previous expectation, or this was Mike Tarrolly's 2019 pace or 2018 pace. You don't have a pace. It's new. So you had this ability to go out and just do it for the enjoyment and do it for getting back into shape and being healthy again. And I think like everyone can do that. Like if you're just trying to get back into one of the three sports, or you had a setback or an injury or whatever it is, like you can do something that's similar. It doesn't have to be the same to get you back to even something that you love. Like if you fall out in love with swimming or fall in love with biking or running, like there are ways to get back there that aren't kind of force feeding yourself right back into the same thing that you were doing over and over and over again. And then you kind of eventually kind of mesh, even kind of without even like understanding and realizing it, you kind of get back to like, oh, well, now I am back to kind of running again. Like, here I go. Like you can do it without forcing yourself to do it and forcing yourself to adhere to and meet a previous version of yourself that you may or may not be able to get back again, or you might be faster or you might be slower, but you'll get there. And by doing something like what you did, was kind of tackling trail running, you're like, well, I have no pace goals because I don't know any of them. It's right. A new trail. It's something totally different. And so you kind of get to start over. And then, I'm sure in a couple weeks or months, you'll start doing more stuff on the road and like, hey, I'm really not that far off. This has been actually a fun comeback and not one that's been littered with, disappointment and failed expectations and, regression. It's been one where I've kind of been like, like getting back into it is the number one goal. Like, seeing improvement is so relative. It doesn't have to be a pace or a distance. It can just strictly be getting out and moving and doing something that you love, because then like those are the things that add up. It's like, I think a lot of times, and especially in endurance sports and training, it is that like, was it the chicken before the egg or the egg before the chicken thing? It's like, did I fall in love with the sport first, or did I just do the sport and then fall in love with it? Or did I really love running, or did I start biking and run a little bit? And I was like, I'm getting in really good shape. I do love running. It's like, or did I tell myself I always felt this way, or am I back or am I not back? So I think it's like, there are ways to kind of slowly mesh your way into feeling back without forcing yourself to get back in a time frame, which most people do when they get back on the bike. Like, well, last year I was at this point, my FTP was, like 230, and right now it's I've got to get back there quickly. So first you have no idea how your body's going to respond, because it's totally different than it was the year before. But by doing something different or not even like paying attention to it, you're just kind of like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, I'm not even worried about 230 anymore because I'm already at 260. But if all I had thought about was getting back 230, then I'd be 2:30.
2:30,
But you just get on and ride your bike a lot, run a lot. You can get back there. It's the way you go about it, and just doing it in a very present, aware way that, frankly, is more fun. It's because you don't have those thoughts and expectations.
Yeah, it turned into a bit of a fun mind game for me in a way, because I was talking to somebody about the injury that I had, and on a level of 1 to 10, right? And a lot of times for me, it was at an 8 or a 9, just walking around during the day. It was just kind of this, wow, this is really crazy. And certainly whenever I tried to run. So then it became, the thought of actually trying to go out and run became a really bad issue for me mentally. But now I'm going out there and doing these trails, and it feels good. And I it's, the pain is still there a little bit, but like, even when I started, I felt like it was this similar pain, but I just was looking at it in a way different way. It was like I was just in a better place mentally. So you know how it is. It's sort of like if you're sick and you just lay around all day, you just feel sick all the time. And it doesn't change, and I was kind of not doing anything to change that up. And I think over time, now it's just like, it's just giving me a whole different mindset again. And to your point, I'm not trying to be the same guy when I come back. I want to be better, So I think in a way, this has become, because I've always known that I've neglected strength training and things like that, and I've always felt like I've been in good, quote unquote, triathlon shape, but I never really felt like I had the whole thing rounded out in a strong frame sort of way. And I hope that this kind of thing will be that. And it's really exciting for me to focus on running and trail running, especially. And I've been talking to some athletes right now because we're hitting this holiday season. It's a weird one, and a lot of them. It's the same kind of thing. It's like I'm focusing on the running, and we talked about this many times about just focus on something you love to do right now, because if you can get out ahead and really be falling in love with just one sport right now through the next 2 months as we get, the holidays and all the tough stuff. And I think that's the way to go. I really do. I think for a lot of people I was talking to, some people that really love cycling, and I'm just like, just pour yourself into the bike right now, because not only is that a great way to go about it, but I think once you get into really good bike shape, sometimes that flips the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like it turns you're like, man, I feel like running now. And you may not feel like running at all, but if you get in cycling shape, and for me, it's kind of could be, if I feel like I get in good run shape, that might spin my bike back on. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I'm looking at it.
It doesn't all transfer over, but a lot of it does. And I've talked about this before in terms of how cycling is so beneficial to running, and even vice versa. It's still the same system. Like, your body isn't made up of 3 compartments: a swim compartment, a bike compartment, a run compartment. You're only allowed to use that specific compartment when you work out. That's you've done when you're swimming. Like, it doesn't work like that. Yes, there's crossover, and the biggest thing, the biggest thing you'd have to worry about with a cyclist that's going to turn into a runner is the engine greatly. It's so massive that it is just outgrown, or it's too big for the chassis, because cycling is a non-impact sport. And so you'd be afraid. Same thing with rowers, is that they have massive engines, but these very, not fragile and frail, but like these chassis, like their body and their skeletal system, and tendons and ligaments, that just they're not used to the pounding, and so they will overrun and they'll break their chassis. Like, that's something you have to worry about. It's not like a cyclist, a high-level cyclist, or anybody who just is a good all-around cyclist. They go pick up running, like, oh, wait, you can't use that same aerobic system in capacity because you only use that when you're cycling. You're basically going to have to start walking when you run. No, they can go out and run faster than a lot of people that run. Like, there is a huge crossover, and if you want to get better at running and you can't run every day, then ride. Right? Because you can bridge the gap with working your aerobic system. Like, everything complements the same thing with swimming. I think swimming complements running so much, because it's a total body sport, and so is running. I think running is very underestimated in terms of like how much of upper body you actually do use, and swimming is in the non-impact version of that. And so you can do all these things like to get back to where you want to do so much quicker than if you just say, okay, well, I can only run 3 days a week because that's all my body can handle. Well, then ride and swim. The biggest thing though is making sure that your engine is growing and improving at the same rate as your chassis. You never want your engine to outgrade. Like, you always, in my opinion, you want to stick to making sure your chassis is always being built all the time. That way, because no matter how big your engine is, if the chassis can't hold it, then it's going to break and you're going to have to walk. Like no matter how fast you are, if you get to a point where your body can no longer hold that speed and you have to walk, then your speed no longer matters, right? It's like everyone's obsessed about speed in Ironman or half marathons and 7.3s. Like your speed only matters if you can hold that speed till the very last kilometer, like the very last 400 meters. Other than that, it's irrelevant, if you can't hold it. So you have to always make sure that you're doing both the work, and you can do that with running. You can work your aerobics, but then again, or if you want to be want to be crafty with it, you can, ride twice a week and ride really, really hard, right, to work some higher intensities up and only work on your running with just increasing frequency, like running 5 or 6 times a week, adding in no high intensity work, adding in no repeats, adding in no, zone 3, zone 4, zone 5 work, no intervals, but do those on the bike where they're safe, because I'm not saying you can't get hurt, but you're much less likely to have any kind of, injury pop up on the bike versus, pounding yourself on the run. And then kind of let your systems come together that way. That way, one's not, overgrown while the other one is still trying to catch up, because that's how people get injured.
I like that, man.
That's why I hate track workouts. I don't hate them. For most people, if you run 3 times a week, then one of them shouldn't be a track workout. I'm just saying, because you're using 33% of your time to work on your engine, and you're not going to be able to hold it. You're just not. And that's unless you can run 5 or 6 times a week, then I think that you're better off using hills or maybe even tempo. Track workouts, you're not going to be able to hold it unless you can run that much and have a chassis that can hold it for the last 13.1 or of your 7.3 or the last 13.1 of your Ironman marathon.
Mm-hmm. I think we actually had a podcast to swim to run better or something.
We did.
Like that.
We
and
do.
It was about, a lot of it was about the core, I remember too, and those types of things that just sort of I don't know. I just really like what you said there about the riding hard in the middle and then just building the chassis through the run, because especially, man, I mean, let's face it, a lot of us in this sport are getting up there in age, and the idea of actually turning on the jets while you're running it's just so fragile, I guess is the best way I could put that, man. Because there are very few times when at my age, because we just don't do it. You know what I mean? Like when you're a kid, you walk out the door and you run down to the stop sign or the bus stop or whatever. I mean, you're just doing it all the time. And as you get older, you just don't do that sort of move, but you still have it. You think you can. And that's where
that's the problem
happen.
Is you think you can, you go out and you're like, I play, for you, this is probably a good example for you, and even I do. I'm like, I can go out and throw a baseball. You hum it, and you do the same arc speed.
I tore my rotator throwing a cornhole bag last night.
I was and after 3, I'm like, I'm still sore from throwing catch. Playing catch. You, and people do that. They come right out of the box, right out of the gate with the expectation of, I've got it, and then but your system, it breaks down. That's why, once you get to a point to where you're running frequently and you're running, that's why you have to keep up some sort of semblance of a long run, because your body would just be like, I don't need this. I can just kind of let things go. And it takes, once you've got it, you just don't want to lose it, because it does take time to work your way back to getting that chassis that's going to hold the engine that you want. You have to work. But it's boring, and people don't like it, and people don't want to do their hills. They don't want to do just with trail running. They don't want to up their frequency and add these 30-minute runs that aren't very fancy. But upping the mileage and upping the duration, especially the duration, on that your body can handle each week. Now you're, instead of focusing on having a very, very tiny engine with a very tiny chassis, think the bigger the chassis, the bigger the engine, because you're going to develop an engine anyway along the way. But the more volume you put in, the more, pounding your body can withstand, the bigger engine you can make. And they're going to be, very similar. So if you're concerned about being fast, especially over distance, not on a 5K, but even then, especially if you're looking at it over a distance, over half marathon, over a full marathon, you have to have the durability to hold it, because as we talked about in the last couple of podcasts, it's not how fast you go, it's how little you slow down. And it's about the chassis, which is about something you see people, if you ever spectated, you watch people run and they look like they're crumbling, falling over sideways, because their body is so structurally unsound when it comes to being able to hold not just the impact of running, but running fatigued on I'm being so fatigued already from having swam 2.4 and ridden 112. Your body's already kind of come into like, all right, I've already taken a couple body shots today, so I'm not going to be, best suited. So you have to just be very, very resilient on what you can do. And that comes with building the chassis, doing things that are strengths. If you want to be fast, focus on being strong and then fast, not vice versa, which most people just skip straight to. I just want to get faster. Be stronger first.
100%, dude. We have an athlete here who's racing 70.3 coming up too with you. And I was talking to her. I was like, this weekend, I can see how this is going to really benefit you in a few weeks, because like what we're doing, we're going back to back to back. We're not going fast. I know she's probably watching her watch and thinking about pace a little bit, but it's not even about that, man. It's like you cannot even start thinking about how this running up in this terrain is going to impact that. I mean, or correlate, I guess, with that race. But you're going to see it because, and it's just like as we keep layering more and more runs on here, and the strength factor, and to me, a lot of it is the mental factor. It's the ability to keep going and keep pushing up these hills, that when you get on that course, it's like there won't even be any hills.
Resilience. Like that's what you're building is like that's why I had an athlete doing the same race, Texas 70.3, and mentioned this. He's like, well, in the past, before I started working with you, I always took Mondays off, which is a lot of people's like, whatever. They just take Mondays off for no reason whatsoever. So that's what they do. And he was like, since I started working with you, we obviously swim and run on Mondays usually, or we'll just run or we'll just swim, or sometimes active recovery. But as we get closer to race day, you do a long run on Sunday, and then on Monday, what are you doing again? We're running again. And he was like, it's been such an eye-opening experience, because it shows me that when I wake up the next day after a long run, I'm like, I actually feel pretty good. I can go for another. Right. It's like, he's like, it gives me a lot of confidence, not just that I can see it physically in my, improvement in how my body feels, but like mentally and emotionally think, oh, well, I used to just take a day off because I was shelled. Now I'm doing my long run, wake up the next day and doing a swim and run and kind of keep it going. That's the kind of resilience that you need to build up on your body, is that like you can wake up the next day as long as the load is appropriate, and you can do it over and over and over again. Like here at camp, like, we came in and we got here Wednesday. Some athletes did an easy Wednesday, run on Wednesday night, and then we woke up Thursday morning, had a fairly difficult run, did a midday hike, did another run that was fairly difficult, Thursday evening, and then we woke up this morning, and then this most recent one that was also fairly difficult, and you're like, wait a minute. So I hiked, and I've done 3 runs in basically 24 hours totaling, and I feel pretty good. Like what's like this? Like it's that durability that you can, we talk about it in Ironman all the time. It's like about taking body shots. Like if you can just make a body, like that's when you look at boxers, like, yeah, they swing for the head all the time. And like, that's like the knockout punch, but they spend so much time building up a frame that can withstand any kind of punch, especially to the body. Because if you don't, you've seen people be knocked out by a solid body shot like that. You have to create a body, especially in endurance sports, whether it's long running, long riding, long swimming, 70.3s, fulls, whatever it is. You have to create and focus on a body that can withstand those body shots and that can be there for the long haul. Because if you want to be available to express your fitness or show any kind of a speed, you have to get to a point to where you can have the chassis that can hold the engine without it breaking later on in the game. And even if you can't reach your max speed, if you can just not slow down and withstand the energy expenditure and the day and the heat and the terrain, and you're like, this isn't eating your lunch as much as it does on, especially like courses like Wisconsin or, that used to be Louisville. It's like, it's just constant, like just body shot and blow. The ones that are left standing are like, they're the ones that have created the most resiliency and durability. So if you have this obsession with speed and being faster, I would ask that you reframe that into, okay, well, I've got the frequency. Instead of just saying, all right, now I just want to get fast. Think about becoming strong. Because if you want to be a great fast runner, you need to be a strong runner first, because fast runners are strong and they have to be strong to utilize that speed, because what you're asking your body to do is tremendous. To run, like if you think about it, like when you go out and I could tell you to go, go out today and go run really easy 30 minutes. Okay. And you go out and you run 30 minutes, you come back, I'm like, I feel pretty good. Or I could go say, Mike, go out and I want you to run easy 5 minutes, then I want you to sprint all out 800 meters and then walk for 2 minutes in between. You'd be shelled the next day, right? So, but a lot of athletes do that. They're like, well, I got 2 runs this week and make 1 a track record. And they end up just absolutely dismantling their chassis because they don't have one. And then they are robbing themselves the opportunity of being consistent because they're so sore and the body is breaking down so much. Like, I think that's one of the biggest points, and you brought up on one of our very, very first podcasts, is like, working out should give you energy, right? It shouldn't take away. Like, yeah, you should have some sessions that are pretty difficult, and really, really challenging. But for the most part, all of your sessions running something should be appropriately challenging. They should be building blocks. It shouldn't be demolition day. And that's what so many athletes look at when they look at running or look at track workouts, or even, athletes that constantly, hop on trainer rotors Zwift and smash themselves 4 days a week. Like, you're not building anything. You're demolishing things. And if you really, truly, even though it's fun to demolish yourself and have like one great this or Zwift race 5 times a week, like you're not building anything. You're just demolishing what you have. And so if you want to continue to build a massive fitness base and a massive engine and a massive chassis, you have to build. You can't just strike matches and burn it every single week. You've got to take time to build it. And then every once in a while, light it up. Rev up the engine, slam on the accelerator. But you want your body to be able to think, oh, that was good. I handled this because you know what? I can wake up tomorrow and do it, not, well, I went out today and I demolished myself. Because if you say that or you feel that way, tomorrow, the next day, the day after that, you're not going to be meaningless, but you're not going to be able to do very little that's going to be beneficial in terms of like improving your training. It's going to be basically, I need to recover, because even the easiest runs, you're damaging your body, right? Like you're doing damage. You're asking your body to repair itself in a way that it can come back stronger and more efficient the next day. If you damage it too much to an extent, it's not thinking about how do I improve. It's thinking about how do I fully repair myself and heal from this trauma you just put me through to get things back. So you're going to get sick more, you're going to get injured, and you're going to basically regress because you can't be available to train consistently for a long period of time, which is I think the most difficult things for newer athletes and even seasoned athletes kind of wrap their brain around, is because they want to jump straight to the fast. Like, I hear it all the time. It's like, I haven't done any speed work. I'm like, if you run 5 or 6 days a week, yeah, sprinkle in a little bit of tip. Like, I was reading an article from a running book that's like 80, 90 years old, and it specifically said in this chapter, said you shouldn't even flirt with speed work for 2 years. If you're trying to be an accomplished runner, he's like, you should focus on hills and sustained longer tempo efforts. Outside of that, you really truly have no business focusing on speed. But somebody like, I just haven't done much speed work. I'm like, no, you just ran twice a week and you've been inconsistent. Like, you can get faster by running frequently and putting on a volume. Yeah, you want to sprinkle in hills, and you want to become stronger and durable. And that's how you ultimately do get faster. But like it takes time, and running is one that takes the longest, because not only does running take the longest, but it's also the one that people give up on the quickest, because it does take so long to do, because you're asking your body to do so much and withstand so much of a pounding. People quit before they get to where they want to go, because they try to cut corners and realize they keep getting lost, keep getting injured, and think, this isn't for me. I'm always an injured runner. I have to walk, or I have to walk only, or I have to give up running. It's usually because you're just impatient or your programming was too intensive.
Well, triathlon is a complicated problem for your body to solve. So it's like you're trying to learn a complex subject like on one night by cramming all night. It's just not going to happen. It's certainly not going to have any long-term effect. And when you're talking about running, and I like to think of it in what's the sort of thing is like you run or you do Ironman at like 70% or something like that, or effort. If you're talking about our perceived effort, or what's your effort in Ironman, right? People are always like, that I talk to that have never done this, are like, how can you run that far and do that? It was like, you have to, find this place, this zone where you can just do it for a long time. And like you said, you have to have the chassis and the body to hold up over time. But like I get kind of crazy when I think about the speed work type stuff, because I think, again, it goes back to sort of that childhood, that memory that we have is like, hey, go run over there as fast as you can, and then run back here or whatever, run over and push off the fence and come back. And you're going as hard as you can, basically. And you can go for maybe 100 yards or something like that or whatever. And when we think 100% in our running game here as triathletes that are getting older, that are doing this kind of for fun and all that sort of thing, that 100%, you should just wipe that out of your mind, man. It's like, if most of our runs say are zone 2 and they're in the 65 to 70% effort range, whatever that is for you, I always talk about flirting around with 74%, or like understanding like the increments as you can go up, instead of like, like maybe your 100% is actually 80% right now. That's about as far as you should go with the body you have and the shape you're in. So, and we talk about it in the water as well. And I always talk about it on the bike. It's like really get a feel for, like, if you get stuck in the wrong gear or something, or what that feels like, or why that doesn't, that's not where you should be, and toy around with these like little increments, and like that 2 year, the guy said, don't flirt with speed for 2 years that's a great lesson, I think, to me, is like, again, so if you're thinking all out on some kind of interval work, just think maybe 83.5% or something like that.
Max
just
90.
Really like max, like
90 is the
understand max. those different levels. To me, that's more important than actually hitting that level, because that doesn't necessarily mean you're ready to hit that 91 or whatever.
Well, I say this in our onboarding guide. I'm like, when I say all out, I mean 90%. Like, because the risk reward from going from 90, which is, in my opinion, 90% is controlled, solid, hard. It's not what most athletes do, which is, again, what you see with most triathletes on the track. It's like what you see at 90%, which is solid, controlled, fast. Then they go solid and just controlled and strong and hard. Then they go from 100% to out of control fast, which they got bad mechanics, they got bad form, they're running at a speed and a form that they're never going to replicate, ever. So you're running on, you're doing strides and you're lengthening, you're increasing your cadence, or you're slowing it down, or you're changing up your stride, or where you plant, when your body's not used to doing that at all, period. But you're going to create and generate the most force and the most impact on the form and the mechanics that you never use and that you will never touch during for a lot of athletes on the same point that you're in, and most oftentimes all of them on an Ironman, like 90%, like the risk to reward is not there. It's just not to do those and risk injury, when you could just do, hey, you know what I could do? I could just kind of lengthen the interval by 30 seconds or a minute and just do 90% control. Like, the all-out control is like, it's not overrated, but I think it's misunderstood in terms of, like, you should be in control, and you should be like, I can still jog when I get done. I still feel in control, like I'm out of breath, and especially if you keep them like really, really short, like we do in like a lot of our, I wouldn't even call them intervals, like, 30 seconds, 45 seconds here, like you're working on leg turnover, but by the time your heart rate gets up to where it needs to go, you're already ready to jog again. Like you're just priming the system and generating positive stimulus versus destroying it, which is what a lot of athletes are obsessed with for whatever reason. It just has to be something a positive and a benefit, and to sprinkle it in, and just, it's 100% all out, so overrated, especially with running. Like, you're better off, like you said, doing 90%, or most athletes shouldn't even honestly touch speed work, or I guess it's your definition of speed work. Shouldn't even touch the track, shouldn't even touch going all out or doing 400, 800 meters. You should do hills and working on sustaining your longo tempo intervals, which is like, tempo is zone 3, which for a lot of that, it's like your open marathon effort, and working your way up from 10 to 15 to 25 to 30 minutes to 35 minutes, like those grueling longer tempos that are controlled, where you're not crushing yourself. Those, you'll see the biggest gains in hills and tempos in doing that consistent, because you're also going to wake up feeling pretty okay the next day to carry on doing your own thing, and you're building these massive blocks versus build, day off, destroy. And then you're like, how am I going to repair? Why do I just feel so shown? Well, because you're being, frankly, irresponsible with your body and the engine that you have and the chassis that you don't have. And that's why you see so many athletes getting injured so often.
That's self-love, man.
It's seriously, it is. It's just the restraint and the patience that most athletes just don't. Why because
can't you
they're
be who you were.
They're type A,
Today
they're
we'll
B,
figure that
and
out.
so is this, and let me leave you with this. When in doubt, don't go harder, be kinder to your body. That is like a general rule of thumb to yourself and to your body and how you should train, because we mentioned this, I think, in one of the very, very earlier podcasts, is like most of training and performance and success is based on one thing: availability. And that's the availability to train, which means the availability to train consistently. And if you want to be able to do that, then you need to be healthy, not just physically, but you need to be healthy mentally and emotionally. And what does that mean? That means being kind to yourself, to your goals, to where you are each day and how you judge yourself and the expectations that you set. It also means being kind to your body by not destroying it every day, to actually doing workouts that make you feel better at the end of it, that makes you feel re-energized, that makes you feel like you're improving, that causes, positive, stimulus and adaptation and response. That's what you should be doing, because then you can do it more and more often and more frequent and more consistency and build more volume. And oh my God, now I'm getting better. So when in doubt, just be kind to yourself overall, because I promise you, you will fall in love more and more with the sport. You will treat your body better. And in turn, it will treat you better with better results and better performance.
All right. That sounds beautiful.
Well, thanks, man. That was another poem for this week.
I like it.
That's so poetic. As always, listen, we appreciate you. Again, if you're tuning in and you're laying back in your bed at the Holiday Inn right there on Front Beach Road in Panama City, trying to kill time before you line up tomorrow at the start line, go out and have fun. Just it. Put a smile on your face, show some gratitude, because I guarantee you 3 months ago, you probably had a lot of doubts that you were actually going to be out there taking this on, doing something, especially for the first timers. Like, what a year to do your first Ironman and have to have made it to the start line healthy. Just congratulations. Just be happy, smile a lot. Thank your volunteers. Just enjoy the atmosphere, because you're never going to have another one like it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns about anything and everything, just email Mike, crushingiron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me, obviously, as well, I'm at C26coach@gmail.com. And if you want to visit our one-stop shop, that's our website. It is C26triathlon.com, and that is all things camps, coaching, community, and our new club, or our revitalized club membership.
The club is back. If you want more information about the club, check it out on the website. And, frankly, it's a good way to figure out all about these camps. And, we like that's part of the team, and the camps kind of come with that when they're open. And it would be great to have you at something like this. So check it out. We're going to go back out running, I think, here soon, huh?
Yeah, I'm going to have lunch and then go back out for another run in about 2 hours.
Sounds good.
All right, dude. See you, buddy.
All right. Good luck to everybody down there.